What is it? The course? Oh, really?
None of the schools that I need a long to home. So I'm definitely pushing.
Uh,
It's but I will see you next semester fall.
Fall. Oh, okay. Good, good, good. In fall, I'm teaching the concept course, the network concepts. So 3004. Hopefully, well, this is not finalized yet. And then the analysis of communication network. So that's the 4704. Yeah. That one, a lot of the students, I think they took it last fall, were the ones who are taking now spring with me. I think it's a really decent course. We go over the network layers one by one from a top-down approach. Yeah. 4704 CNT. Okay, let's see here. So we got okay. So we can go ahead and begin. Today our chapter is going to be about chapter 9. Obviously, we mentioned on Tuesday that the chapter we were in on Tuesday was about intrusion detection, IDSs, right? And today we're moving to cover IDS, intrusion prevention, kind of in the way abbreviation is IPs, and firewalls. So this is going to be mostly chapter 9. If you're in the networking class, we have already covered this concept before, and we have modified the rules, right? How to modify the firewall rules such that we can block ongoing, ingoing, forwarding traffic, and much more that we're going to do today with Kali Linux. Okay, so before we begin, obviously, as I always remind, your assignments are due this Sunday, and just make sure that you complete them. And they're very straightforward. We have went over them on Tuesday, and I think once they got released as well. Okay. A little bit about the modules. Obviously, today we will wrap up chapter 9, and next week we will have our exam. So, so yeah, we're in week 11. Today's going to be chapter 9, and then next week is going to be our exam. So, how many of you guys in favor of having Tuesday as like a study break, right? Kind of in a way you can get prepped for the exam, similar to how we done exam 1, or you guys just want a lecture, right? We move on to the next chapter. How many are in favor of having the study break on Tuesday? Okay. What about lecture? Okay, so our exam is going to be in person on Thursday. So for all you on Zoom and all of you guys here in class, our exam is going to be Thursday. It's going to be in person. It's going to be the class time that we have here. So it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes from 4:30 to 5:45. We're going to have about 30 to 35 questions. Okay, they're going to be multiple choice, very similar to exam one. What I'll do before Tuesday, I'll do it sometimes even before the weekend. I will make an announcement and I'll obviously announce about the exam being in person. Obviously, there's some students that don't join the Zoom or don't come to class, so they need to be aware. And then I will post a list of questions, about 100 questions, right? And the exam will have questions from that. So all you need to do is kind of study the chapter 6 to chapter 6 to 9, and then study that 100 questions. And the exam questions will obviously be sampled from there. Some might be the same, some could be different, could be completely the same. Like those 30 questions could be sampled exactly as is from the study session or the study review. Okay. You can bring a cheat sheet if you like. So just one plain paper, write whatever you want on it. Has to be handwritten notes, okay, not printed if you want to use that. And they have to be turned in if you decide to bring one. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, front and back, that's fine. You can put whatever you want on there. And what was it lastly? So I think the way we'll do it is, and I'm hoping to do it through kind of where you uh, where you would bring your machines and it would be locked down browser. So you would take it here, but on your machines, but it would be locked down browser. Okay. Have you guys had that before in other classes? Okay, good. And I think they put out a code here for the exam or something. Or is it based on what? Like you guys just start the exam and it launches it for you. Like how do you guys start the exam? Usually there's a code, right? That shows it that's being up there. Yeah, that's the way we're gonna do it. So just to make sure that you guys are all familiar with that technique. Okay, so today we're gonna finish chapter 9, and then yeah. Okay, so what I will do, and I had that in mind, is that if you don't want to bring your computer and you want to take it just by pen and paper, that is fine. I'll have samples, paper, printed ones of the exam.
Well, I mean, like, I wanna take it online, but Linux not installed on the browser, so
Uh-huh.
I don't have Linux on the laptop.
Uh-huh. So then, if there is no alternative to lockdown browser on Linux systems, then you can just take it on like actual printed. Yeah. So I will just have some samples and then I can just hand you one and then you will do it and then it will be graded. I'm not sure if is there an alternative for lockdown browser on Linux? Yeah, there isn't.
I'll bring it in.
That's fine. If you want to bring another laptop, you guys want to take it as is. But if you want to bring your laptop, that is completely fine.
One.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so that will be any questions? Okay, good. So yeah, if you go back here, after we had our first exam, we started chapter 6, and chapter 6 was about malicious software, 7 was about denial of service, and then 8 was about obviously prevention. So intrusion prevention, and then action detection, and today is going to be prevention and firewall. Okay, so let us go ahead and start. So obviously the objectives of the lecture is for you to understand the purpose of firewalls, right? You want to understand them. We talked a little bit we had that table similarity that compared the different kind of, you can say mailboxes of firewalls, intrusion prevention and detection. Okay, so now we're diving more into firewalls. You want to understand the different types of firewalls. There is different type, maybe you can say categories or genres of firewalls. There is type 1, 2, and 3 that we'll cover. And then we'll explain how the firewall rules will be used to control traffic. Do some obviously some hands-on with that, with the IP tables, filter based on these rules, and then demonstrate stateful firewall behavior. versus stateful versus stateless, and then explain how the IPS works. And then we obviously want to differentiate between the both. Okay, so this is from last lecture, a very quick recap so that you have an idea. The intrusion detection systems, obviously, the way they would work is we have packet filtering, right? Every packet that would come to the given LAN, to the given topology of the network will be examined, okay? So, and whenever we examine the packet, we look out for certain headers or characteristics within that given packet, okay? So there's no correlation check among the sessions. The intrusion detection systems does obviously a deep packet inspection. It would look at the content of the packet and maybe strings and packet against a database or like attack strings. Okay, so they examine correlation among multiple packets to find if there's any kind of like port scanning that is being done, any network mapping that is being done, or it could be a denial of service attack or any relative or alternative security attack that is happening. Okay, so intrusion detection only kind of is like we said, a security camera. It watches and it points out. So it detects and notifies. It does not block. So it monitors the network or the given system. It would detect suspicious behavior or known attack patterns. It would alert you, but does not stop the attack. Okay, so the idea of it is detect and notify. Okay, it could detect a port if there's being scanned, if there's an Nmap scanning being done. If it's like a higher range of Nmap scanning, if it's like very fast T4 or 5, it would send an alert to the admin, and the attack will still continue unless we have kind of a second layer way of security or something that is kind of blocking that given attack. This is the analysis approaches that we talked about. So firewalls are mostly blocking based on rules. It's the guard that we do have. Okay, and it uses rules, IP tables. So is what we're going to examine today. For intrusion prevention and detection, they use these two analysis approaches that we talked about in the last lecture. So anomaly detection, okay, so it builds a profile for the given user, and it would compare their activity to the expected behavior, and then it flags some deviations or some potential intrusions. Okay, so there are strengths and weaknesses that we talked about in the last lecture, and we know that one strength of anomaly detection is that it can detect unknown or very new attacks. The limitation is that it may produce false positives, and then we have signature heuristic detection, and that would use some patterns, some rule sets that are out there, and then I would compare the activity. And the strength is very accurate for attacks, but the weakness is that it cannot predict or catch newer attacks. So this is kind of the topology of the network, and we want to see how intrusion detection system or sensors are being worked. We covered this last lecture. We have a firewall here, and this is what we're going to focus on today. We have the internet. We have an internal network here with some devices, servers, maybe laptops. And then we have these kind of nodes. So, and you can say these red dots are the sensors that will just kind of detect. We can have them anywhere in the DMZ zone as well. Okay, so obviously how it works is that network is going to be mirrored to the IDS sensor. So it's going to be captured. And then it passively observes the packets. It does not alter the packets in a way like block them from kind of coming in internally or leaving. But what it does obviously is that it sends kind of given logs, right? Or kind of alerts to the given admin. Okay. And then we talked about signature-based detection. Matches for attack patterns are known. Anomaly-based detection, it detects unusual behavior. And we can have some protocol analysis. Okay, so once it's detected, an event will be sent to the admin, and then that will send kind of an email or trigger to sign. Okay, and we talked about in the last lecture that we had an example of SQLi injections, and we saw that how it can kind of deal with that. So we move now to firewalls, and firewalls are control who is allowed and who is not. Okay, and based on IPs, ports, and protocols, it would allow or block traffic based on rules. Okay, so for example, and we're going to do a couple of these, is we want to block telnet traffic. We're going to block maybe ICMP traffic, whether it's ingoing or outgoing. We're going to also block a protocol, FTP. So you will get the idea of how firewalls will work. We will allow HTTP traffic, that is fine, and we can do what we like and modify the kind of, you can say the tables or the rules within the table. Okay, so this will obviously the firewall would isolate organization internal from obviously the internal side, the administrator network, which is usually the good guys, and then the public internet. And this firewall can be deployed in multiple places. Okay, so we can have a firewall inside here, the internal LAN, maybe twice here, given that we have a network that is separated. Okay, maybe separated based on given role or kind of given objective. And then we can have one that is outside. So why do we need firewalls? Obviously, we understand from a security aspect that we can have given vulnerabilities, and to make our system more robust against these vulnerabilities is we have firewalls. Okay, so they can prevent actually denial of service attacks, and we will see how in a minute. So, for example, if there's many kind of floods, ICMP floods that are happening, and we covered chapter 7 about denial of service. We showed that we can increase the number of pings. So rather than sending maybe one ping at a given time, we can send maybe 20 or more. Okay, so those can be blocked. You can prevent illegal modifications or access to internal data. Okay, so like for example, the attacker would replace the CIA homepage with something else, and we would only allow authorized access to the given network. Okay, so we can set of authenticating users and hosts. So these are the three types of firewalls. We have stateless packet filters, stateful packet filters as well, and then application gateway. Okay, so those are the three main common ones. So here we're going to look at, obviously here we have a general model, and this is general A. General model A is being used obviously between internal and external given traffic. So that is kind of the standard model that we do have. But as we kind of can say propagate or have a deep dive into the network, we can have different firewalls or types of firewalls that are being deployed across the given network. Okay, so the first one that we have is here, packet filtering firewall. This only covers, or when we talk about the OSI model, we'll talk about transport, internet, and the network access. Okay, so it filters based on IP, ports, and protocol. There is no connection awareness that is being happening. And then we have stateful inspection firewall. This is in here in C. Also deals with the same given layers, but it has a state info here. You can see kind of a buffer of a state info. Okay, so it tracks active connections and uses state information. And we're going to cover that. So usually when we have a session that is established or has been established before, we don't need to kind of block it. We know that a session has been kind of established or it's still kind of valid in a way. Application-based proxies are just focusing on the first layer, so application layer, it would inspect application layer traffic. Okay, so it kind of acts as a first layer of a firewall. Then we can have circuit level proxy firewall that is just on the transport layer. It monitors the sessions, and then it does not inspect data very deep. Okay. Okay, so we move to type 1 of a firewall, and if we go back to here, the slide is going to be stateless packet filters. And we said stateless packet filters focuses on IP, ports, and protocols. Okay, so this is the idea of what's happening. Obviously, we have a firewall here given that is a separator between the internal and external network. And when we have packets that are arriving, we want to check them if should they be let in or out. Okay, so that's what the firewall job is to do. And we have here an internal network that is connected via router, and the router is acting kind of as a firewall. Okay, so we don't have, there could be a separation of physical device for firewalls, but that feature could be embedded in the actual, even kind of given host, or it could be the given router. Okay, and we are filtering packet by packet, and we have a decision to make, either forward, accept, or deny the given packet. Okay, so we look at the source IP address, maybe destination. We can look at the protocol, TCP or UDP. We can find some port numbers, the message type, and we can even have like sync, send and acknowledgement of the TCP three-way handshake. So this is an example that here we want to block incoming and outgoing traffic with an IP diagram that has protocol field 17. Okay, and the source could be or destination can be port 23. So internally or externally of anyone that is using port 23 as a destination will be blocked. Okay, so all outgoing UDP flows with telnet connections are going to be blocked. UDP for 17 and 23 for telnet. Here we have another example with obviously the handshake. We want to block inbound TCP segments with acknowledgement zeros. So this would prevent external, obviously, clients from making TCP connections with internal clients. Okay, well, allows internal clients to connect to outside. So we can modify it the way we want. So these are a couple of examples. I'm not gonna read all of them, but here is just that we have a firewall setting or a rule, and that is set by the admin. Could be internally for the internal employees, and it could be externally. Okay. Usually here what we have is that, for example, if we have no outside web access, we drop any packets that go to port 80, right? So if it's HTTPS, does anyone know the port for HTTPS? Yeah. 443? Yes, that's right. So port 80 is HTTP. And let's do another one here. So we're dropping, for example, we want to prevent the network from being used for Smurf denial of service attack. We can drop all the ICMP packets, and we're going to do that today. Okay. So this is actually protecting against denial of service attacks. And we can block it with a specific address, maybe an address range. That is also possible. Here, this one is preventing the network from being trace routed. So we drop all going ICMP, time to live expired traffic that we have. So access control lists, we know that they are being used not only by given firewalls, we know they're being used by routers. Routers will be embedded with a list of rules, and those are kind of a match in action for the packets. Okay, we also use access control lists here, and they be applied from top to bottom for incoming packets. Okay, so we can have a list of rules. If this is achieved, then we look at the second one, and so forth till all may be achieved. Then the packet is forwarded. Okay, maybe if one of them fails, we can kind of just stop the given packet. So here we're allowing here, and maybe you can say the first given row here, we are allowing this given source address /16 and destination can be the same TCP protocol, anything that is greater than 1023. The destination of port 80, and then the flag is any. That is fine. And we can have a deny model that blocks everything. So we don't want kind of anything to be accepted or outgoing. We can block that. So we move to type 2, and this is stateful packet filtering type. Okay, so you could say it's a heavy-handed tool compared to type 1. It admits that the packets really make no sense. For example, if we have a destination port 80 here, the acknowledgement bits are even set, even though there is no connection that is established. Okay, so that is what's happening here. So the stateful packet filter would track status of every TCP connection. Okay, so it tracks the sends that are going and the teardowns that are happening and determine whether incoming or outgoing packets make sense. So if there is time to live or timeout inactive connections of firewall, it will no longer admit the packets. And here's some access control lists that are kind of like augmented here to check the connections state table before admitting packets. So here we are checking connection because that is what the stateful does. There's a connection that is before. So we check the connection, and then we have some roles as well. And then the last type of the firewalls is type 3. So type 3, it would filter for packets, and it focuses on the application layer reset. Okay. It focuses also could be on IT, TCP, and UDP fields. And for example, we would allow select internal users to telnet outside, very limited. So the idea would have here, obviously we'd have a host, a user here, maybe it could be Bob, and Bob would want to telnet somewhere else. We have an application gateway, and it's kind of like an application gateway firewall mechanism that is involved here. And that obviously is going to be directed to the gateway, to the router, and that has also filter. So we filter there based maybe on TCP UDP fields, and then application will kind of filter based on maybe the protocol. Okay. And then obviously a session will be established once everything is met. So what is happening obviously behind the scene, the user themselves will not directly connect to the internet. They have to go through a couple of steps. They connect to the application gateway first, then that is verified based on the identity and policy. And obviously there creates a second connection to the router or the external server. And then that would result or kind of have relay traffic between both sides. Okay, this is powerful, obviously, because we are authenticating, we're identifying and authenticating. The application data can be inspected, and unauthorized commands can be blocked. So everything is logged, and then direct connections are prevented, like T3 or a direct LAN-to-LAN connection or host-to-host connection is going to be blocked. So we move to IP tables. We had the slide in the last lecture. So these are the rules or kind of like ways we can filter and control network traffic. Okay. And we operate based on rules that apply to different stages. So these are what we can modify here. We have the inputs, and this is obviously going to be packets that are destined for the local machine. Here we have pre-routing incoming packets. Here are the ones in green and blue. Before a routing decision is made, they are modified. And then we have a forward, we have post routing, and we have output. Okay, so the post routing here is gonna modify for leaving, and then the output is gonna be they're generated by the local system. They're meant to be sent somewhere else. And then forwarded packets are passing through, which is a typical router given behavior. Okay, so obviously every given packet would pass through, maybe you can say layers or maybe chains, and the rules will decide to accept, drop, or modify the given traffic. Okay, so let's move to a little bit of hands-on. We're gonna view the Kali Linux current given tables, and then we're gonna see what we can do with the rules and just mess with a couple of protocols and some port numbers that we do have. Okay. Any questions about the types of firewalls, about intrusion detection systems in the last lecture? Okay. Yeah.
Adding systems on
Yeah, Kali's, yeah. So I will launch my virtual machine. And what I will do is I will start Kali. Now I will also need to start Metaexploitable because we're going to do some scans with it. And then we're also going to do some pings. So the host needs to be up. Yep, so here we have Metaexploitable. And then here we have, yeah, I think the way that this class is leading to with the chapters that we have, it's going to cover a lot of chapters that we have already went over. So if there's going to be an overlap, a little bit of overlap if you're taking the other class, which is the network class. So we're going to cover, I think, email security. There's one chapter here about it. There's one chapter here about, I believe, yeah, email security is one. And then what else we have? We have a couple that are kind of like overlapping, similar to here, like the intrusion prevention and detection system. And then firewalls. Okay, so here what we have is obviously we have the command prompt. And for us to kind of, we have some commands here, sudo iptables -l. And we use -l over there as well for the directories to view the current files in the given directories. I would list the current files, or I would list here, obviously, the current firewall rules that we do have. And then -f would flush out all firewall rules. So we would do that towards the end after we modify some things here. So let's check the table now and see what we have. So we have sudo and then IP tables -l. Then we're going to use Kali. So let's see what we have. So you see we can have here, obviously, we have some for Docker as well. Don't need to worry about that. We move down. This is what we have. So we have the input, and the input is going to be those packets are based on the chain of the input, and we have no kind of given rule here. Here we have kind of for the forward that is there. We should have one for the output. This is for the output here. And we have filtering rules. There should be really no filtering rules that are present. When we look at the table again, after we do some steps, we're going to see that as well. So this is obviously the key idea is that we confirm that we have some given configuration rules before we apply new ones, or we start with the next given one. So here, for example, we want to block ICMP traffic. So what we do here is that we will do a regular ping from our machine. So when we do ping to our other machine, our meta exploitable, it would be pingable just fine. Okay. For example, we want to disable that given ping. What we do is that here packets are being sent and received typically, and that is fine. There's no packet loss, and this is the typical ICMP traffic. To block the ICMP table, we're going to add a rule. Obviously, this is a new rule establishment, and this is made for ICMP traffic. That is where ping belongs to, kind of like given protocol, and we're going to drop. Okay, so ICMP traffic is going to denied, and then a rule is applied immediately. Okay, so let's do this given step. So we have sudo IP tables minus a for the input, and then here for ICMP, and we're going to drop these given packets. Switch here. So we will do sudo IP tables, and then we will do minus a here, and then inputs, speed, ICMP traffic, and then we want to drop them. So drop. Okay, so if we look back at the table again, let's see here, IP tables. Let's see, this is for Dockers. We messed with the input, so we really want to go to the input. See, we have under our input, we have dropping ICMP that is going to anywhere. The station is anywhere. It's not for a certain IP address. So any pinging to be Google, to be to somewhere else, that is going to be blocked. So when we go back to Kali here, and then we do a regular ping, that would not be happening. So that is going to be blocked. Okay, so that is blocking a protocol that we do have. So you can block by protocol, and this is kind of like a stateless type of a firewall that can block based on rules. And those rules are obviously some ports number protocols, could be IPs. Okay, so the next thing that we do have is maybe we want to do some scanning. So we want to scan meta exploitable. We want to find some ports. We have already know how to do that when we did exploiting. And obviously we're going to find some open ports that we would want to kind of modify on the other side. The other side meaning that we maybe want to block telnet with IP tables or something that is related. Okay. So what we'll do is obviously we have one rule that is there yet now is for ICMP. Now what we'll do is we'll do a regular scan. So it's clear here. We will do nmap, and it can be a typical nmap. Now with the service detection mode, we would enter this, and we can see that obviously we have open ports, and one of the open ports is telnet, port 23. And if we want, obviously internally, we know telnet is very kind of it's obviously kind of vulnerable, so we would block it. So we would block all drop the given packets that we do have. Okay, and maybe we want to also apply to only TCP traffic. So only TCP traffic that is being used with telnet. So here what we do have is that here we are modifying the output, obviously. These are any packets that are leaving, and we have TCP port 23, and we are just dropping here. Okay, so we're applying rules to outgoing traffic, this would be only applied to TCP traffic, not UDP. And we are blocking destination port 23, and then we are dropping the packets. Okay, so let's look at this here back again. So what we'll do is we will go down. We will do sudo IP tables. And then this is for our output. And then we really want to specify the protocol that is TCP here and the given port. So that would be port 23. And then our decision is to drop. So it's there. If we view the table again, so sudo IP tables. So I used to S here, so let me fix that real quick. Okay. So we're gonna look at the output traffic. Okay, so we're dropping TCP and then with telnet. So let's verify this. Let's see if if this works. So we know that Kali can no longer initiate any telnet connections, and other ports are still allowed. So that is kind of where we can filter the activity, or you can say the traffic. So let's see here if we can connect to port 23. So we'll go back, and port 23 should fail. If we connect to port 80, that should still allow us to connect. Okay, so let's see here. We'll go back to. Okay. Let's go back here to Kali, and then let's do it clear. And then what do we have here? So we want to use port given 23. So what we'll do is we'll do NC, and that is going to be minus VZ, and then port, obviously the IP address that we do have, and then port 23. So host lookup fail, and there's unknown host. That is before or after that we set the given firewall rule that we do have there. Okay. And then if we do the same, but maybe on port 80, HTTP here is open. So we are just checking the host if it's available or not, or it can kind of tell us the status. Here we have HTTP that is open, but telnet itself is not open, obviously. Okay, so that is to modify a specific port and also apply protocol. So we did ICMP, now we did TCP with a given port number. So let's look at, maybe we want to modify the other machine now. So we move from modifying your own machine. Now we want to modify meta-exploitable itself. Okay, against maybe we want to close out one of the given ports. When we do scanning, we have a port that is open. We check it ourselves and we see that it's open and we want to filter it. Okay, so what we do, obviously, when we do nmap here, we see that port 21 is accessible. That is here with the FTP and it's open. So what we'll do is that firewall would allow service access to that at this current moment. What would we want to do is we would want to modify the IP tables or configure the firewall on the other machine. So we would use IP tables as well, but this time we will do it at the other given machine that we have. So I'll switch to here to meta-exploitable. We will do me login, NSF admin. NSF admin here. Okay. And we will do sudo. So you just sudo here IP tables. Those are for input packets. And then the protocol is going to be maybe TCP. And then on port is going to be port 21. And then port 21, and then we're going to drop those. Okay. So we block traffic to port 21. FTP service becomes unreachable now, and the rule is going to be obviously applied immediately. So when we should do the nmap again, we should see that the filter is kind of blocked. And this is how we can defend against when we talked about malware, or when we talk about exploiting malware. we talk about in the penetration testing cycle when we exploit given ports and services, we would have those blocked. Okay, this will obviously make the system more robust, and there's no backdoor or kind of a way or a gate for the attacker to enter. So let's look at this here again, and we will do a regular nmap. Also, TCP is obviously we have it's filtered here with Telnet that we did, and then we have port 21 is also filtered. And then here for stateful firewall rule, which is I think the last type that we talked about, and we want to understand how this kind of rule, or you can say this type of firewall works. And we want to allow, and we know this works based on connections, not just only given kind of protocols or IP addresses or ports. This also works on the connection, okay? So for example, we want to allow traffic from a returned existing connection, okay? And that would accept packets that are part of an active session, and it would ensure communication continues properly. Also slows a little bit delays latency in a way where the session is already established and we have a connection, so we don't need to filter the given kind of packets that are happening back and forth or in that given session. So what we'll do for here is that we will go back to Kali and let's see, we want to do established connections. So traffic that has already exists. So let's do clear here. We will sudo IP tables and then file inputs. This is going to be same M here for the states. And here the states. So we're going to do established. And then let's see. Establish related. Related. Minus J, and then we're going to kind of accept those packets. Okay. That is fine for us here. So obviously what we have done is that every connection that is established or has been established with the given system, it would be kind of returning, and this will not affect anymore, or we kind of have a rule to allow these given packets. So user would initiate a connection first, and then they are allowed, and then the server responds, and there it's allowed automatically. So there's no need to manually allow both directions for us if we have a connection. So the difference from basic filtering, obviously we have stateless firewall, this is type 1, and that checks every packet individually for us. There's no memory, we're not giving a buffer or kind of an establishment of the sessions, all the previous traffic that we have. So it may block valid responses for us. Stateful firewall tracks the connection state, okay, and allows related and established traffic for us. Okay, so it is more secure and efficient. So you can just say there's a preference of configuration, or you can say a feature that we can have here when it comes to firewalls. And then lastly, we want to kind of clear or reverse the firewall rules to as they is, or the configurations. You just click command, can modify one by one, or to take it back to as is, we will do sudo IP tables /L F. L is for listing the rules. Okay, so we will do sudo and then tables. And then let's check those again. Yep. Oh, it's even clearer for Docker as well. Yeah. Okay, so here we have a couple of slides conceptually. So for using VPN, right? When we use VPN, what security, how do I to kind of address the question in a way where it's clear. So when we talk about IP security in layer 3, right, we have two types of security mechanisms that are being used. There's one that reads the everything, the given packet, and it's so it would only encrypt obviously the data, the payload, and it would let obviously the destination, port, and IP address to be visible. And then we have a type that encrypts everything. Okay, which type does VPN use specifically? Do we know? Do we recall? We haven't mentioned this before, but we mentioned it in networking classes. We talked about IP security. So we know IP security itself is being used for the network layer, so layer 3. And then we have SSL/TLS that is being used for web browsing. Okay, so SSL is obviously outdated. That's why we use TLS. Does anyone have an idea? Okay, so when we use obviously VPN, we would want our obviously the information is going to be encrypted. That is for sure, but the path is also being encrypted. So we use tunnel mode, right? So that is the tunnel mode that is also being used to send packets from IP version 4 to 6, but we also use it in VPNs. So let's see here, tunnel mode. We're going to cover it here. So there's only, obviously, there is going to be initiation of headers that are being initiated at every stop at the routers, but the original destination and host is going to be obviously encrypted, invisible, and then even the payload is encrypted. Okay, so we have a host here, we could have firewall here. So the idea is that we don't want to focus on the tunnel mode with VPNs. We want to focus on how firewalls work with packets that are being used or how it works with VPNs specifically. So let's go back here. What is one way to hide our IP addresses aside from using kind of VPNs? Does anyone know? Like if we want to use a private IP, yes. Yeah. Anything else? Can also use NATs, right? So network address translation is we want to translate our private IP maybe to a public IP. So this is the second mode here. So NATs. I made this mistake in my graduate class. The other class that I have too. So NATs, networking. Yeah, this is the table I referred to. Okay, so we have our public IPs here, and obviously we have 4 nodes here, but if we take for an example, one of the given nodes that has an IP with 0.0.1, we can have it kind of being to be used by NATs. So we would have a global IP, and then we would have a private IP inside the local, inside the LAN. Okay, so when it communicates externally, it's using a public IP, and then internally, it's using a private IP. And then we have the router that keeps a buffer of all the information. It maps the local and the external. So that is the second way that we have. Okay, so with IP, obviously user with IP security here that we do have, we can expand the figure here with VPN, is that we have a user that is obviously using IP security, and we have a packet that is being sent. There's a header, there's IP security header, there's obviously a payload that is being happening. So everything happens in terms of process encryption. Would we encrypt the traffic before we send it? Okay, and the public internet that we have is that data will travel securely, right? And it's securely meaning that it's encrypted packets. Okay, here we have firewalls that are being used. So we have a firewall with IP security and a firewall with IP security. So firewalls that have IP security can encrypt and decrypt traffic for us. So if we have a packet that reaches this given firewall here or here, they can encrypt and decrypt traffic. So there's obviously secure communication between the original sender, the public internet, and these firewalls. Okay, internal network that we have here, we have a switch and 2 given nodes here, server, switch, and 2 nodes here. The traffic becomes normal again as it's already sent without using kind of a VPN. Okay, and that is going to be delivered to the given devices. Does that make sense? Does anyone have questions? Okay. Here's kind of an architecture we can have, and this can be, you can say architectural topology that we can have. And this architecture is actually a guideline to how it should be structured when it comes to firewalls. We have our internet here, and then we have our remote users. So we would have a firewall for the remote users. Okay, we have a boundary router here. We have the DMZ zone that contains maybe we have a web server, an external web server that is replying to all the given requests externally. And we have an internal DMZ zone here where we have our DNS port 53, email, port 25, and we have web servers, okay, whether it's 80 or 43. Okay, here we're using a LAN, obviously, because when we are reaching the internal side of the given network, we propagate from routers to switches that can forward traffic for us based on MAC addresses. Okay, and then we have a firewall here in this kind of area. We can have also internal protected network, and this is kind of the application, maybe databases, servers. Okay, then we have these, and then we also have our workstation, which is kind of last. And then we have a host resident firewall. Okay, when we say host resident firewall, what do we mean exactly? No, like what is the mechanism here? So here we in this given step, maybe for example, we have a separator of a firewall between the internal and external. But here we have a firewall that is at each given device. I mean, it could be a software that is fine, the way it's kind of working. But here is that we are shifting from having a firewall. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like host-based prevention system, or sorry, detection system that we covered in the last lecture. We have HIDS, right? The heads, where we have kind of the prevention system on the actual given host as well. So we can have that as well, not even just before or after some given, or you can say some portion of the given topology that we do have. Okay, so lastly, to cover some firewalls limitation. We know there's some limitation with firewalls. It's not like the only layer of security that we would have for networking. There could be some spoofing of IPs whenever there's Trudy and she wants to impersonate Bob and to send a packet to a given Alice. She can forge the IP address in the packets, and the firewall could trust the IP rules, okay? Especially stateless filters that are especially vulnerable, okay, for us. So it's harder to verify the sender at the network layer, okay? And obviously, you know, we know this is a security vulnerability. If we trust the IP address alone, the attacker can pretend to be someone else. So we know this is a vulnerability for stateless that operates with given IP addresses. We cannot stop all internal threats, okay? So firewalls mainly protect the network perimeter that we do have. So if an attacker is already inside, firewalls offer limited protection. Okay, unless we have kind of our network segmented in a way we have with VLANs or subnetting. Compromise internal host bypass these controls. So once inside, the firewall is no longer the main defense. Encrypted traffic problem. So modern traffic would use obviously HTTPS itself, SSH, TLS, and they cannot inspect application data without decryption. Okay, so it requires more complex system for us to encrypt and decrypt before we send it from one given spot to another. There could be a performance trade-off. So as we have applications, they would expect layer data. More inspection means more processing. Encrypting or decryption more means more processing time. So it can increase latency and reduce the throughput. Those are two kind of mechanisms that we have and we talk about is to measure the network performance. So more security, and that is typical and common even with network, is that when we add more security features or protocols, it would kind of means there's more overhead. And obviously, the configuration itself is a complex kind of aspect of it to create some rules, security gaps. When we have multiple rules, it can become difficult to manage. Could be human errors that are made. And this is the last part of the chapter because part of it is the firewall and part of it is the intrusion prevention systems. So we monitor traffic in real time here and we can detect and actively listen based on the two analysis mechanisms, whether it's anomaly detection or based on heuristic rules. Okay, so here we are detecting and stopping. So we want to detect an SQLi injection, automatically drop the packet and the blocker. We block the attacker IP address. So they work hand to hand. So they're kind of like working together. So the IPS, how it works, obviously, is going to be in place within the network path. It means meaning all traffic must pass through it. Unlike IDS, it does not just observe, it would inspect and block. Every packet is going to be analyzed in real time before reaching the destination. We perform a deep packet inspection for the characteristics of the packet, not just headers, but also even the payload. Okay. And we have some predefined rules, and these are the analysis mechanisms that we talked about and detection logic to determine if the traffic is safe or not. If it's normal, then it will be forwarded. Traffic is malicious, would be blocked, and we can set some rule for it to kind of block this given host or that given kind of protocol with that given host if we wanted to. So the detection techniques, we talked about signature-based detection, would compare the traffic that we have against some known patterns, and that is effective for detecting known threats. Okay, so malware signatures or exploits. Anomaly, we learn the normal network behavior. We have some sort of behavior that we capture for benign and malicious kind of traffic. Okay, we detect the deviations from the normal patterns. So that is used for like maybe unknown attacks or maybe unknown given kind of behavior or zero-day attacks. Protocol analysis would verify the traffic to follow some standards, would detect some malformed or suspicious packets that are happening. Maybe there's an abnormal HTTP or TCP behavior. So packet would enter the IPS, it would inspect the headers and the payload. We are inspecting both. It matches against rules, signatures, or behavior. It determines if it would classify either malicious or benign. Obviously, it's benign, it would be passed through. If malicious, that would be dropped. It could be terminated. It's obviously going to be logged. And we can use that as to feed to our models, to our analysis models that we can use for unusual given behavior. Okay, so we can update the model in real time, and that can be a mechanism that we have. So it enables real-time prevention instead of just detection. And here we refer to our table. This is just a summary to wrap up, is that obviously the firewall would filter traffic, and this is the guard. It filters, obviously, we have different types, but it's majorly based on connection and rules. IPs, ports, protocols, you would allow or deny. Okay. And position of it is at the network edge. The IDS, the intrusion detection system that we do have, is out of band, and it will detect attacks, and the decision bases are going to be obviously signatures, anomalies, and it would only alert. On the other hand, we have IPS that can block and alert. It would detect and block in a way. Okay, and it uses the same decision basis as that we have for IDSs, but it's here in line. And we have this from the last slides, obviously. These are the three, and these are what they do. Okay, so as a summary, we know for chapter 8, as you can say, is chapter 8 and 9 go hand to hand. They are continuous of given chapters following the same given methodology that we want to block maybe traffic or given network behavior. So we know that firewalls controls rules, okay, traffic using rules. There's packet filtering and stateless firewall that provide different level of control. These are the types of firewalls. Okay. So we have stateful that can keep the given buffer of the established connections like we just did, and that will allow return in traffic. And then we have firewalls rules that can block based on maybe some services, traffic, ports, protocols, IP addresses, and much more. And we know that there's limitations with firewalls that we discussed, and there were about 3 or 4. The IPS would analyze and block malicious activity, so it detects and blocks in real time. The IDS would only detect, okay, and send kind of given errors or logs to the admin. So we combine all of them, and usually secure systems have a multi-layer of security, which is the idea we want to go for, is we not only use firewalls, we use both IPS and IDS. Okay, so it improves the overall security, network security for us. Okay, so that is what we have. So obviously, since everyone was in favor of having Tuesday as kind of a study session, yeah, did you have a question, Matthew? Okay, so our next class will be, there will be no class on Zoom or in person. I'm going to publish an announcement very soon, so they have a list of questions, so you know how the questions are going to be formed, in what way. And they're going to be very similar to exam 1, and then we have our exam on Thursday. Okay, so if you don't want to bring your machine, and you want to take the exam just pen and paper, the typical way, that is fine. But you want to bring your machine, which is highly recommended, so that we don't have to print a lot. Obviously now, since we have both, I'm not going to be sure to how many print, and maybe everyone comes without their machines. Okay, but if you're going to take it on your machine, it's going to be based on Lockdown Browser, and 30 questions for an hour and 15 is fine, right? I think that's enough time, right? You guys think it's not a lot? What are we thinking? Yeah. Yeah, 30 to 35, nothing more. Yeah, I think it should be enough. So you have 2 minutes per question, and that should be fine. Okay, sounds good. So on Zoom, we will take attendance in here. And if you don't have any question on Zoom, you are free to exit. Okay, you had a question, Matthew? Yes?
Might be no question, but
No, that's fine.
on the day of the exam, will you also take attendance and
On the day of the exam. Yeah, we can take attendance. That's fine. While you guys are here, might as well take attendance. Okay, we'll see some fresh faces that don't usually come. And I think it will be a good exam. Just make sure that you read the questions and just prep well, be based on the slides that we had from chapter 6 to 9. You had a question?
For SAS.
SAS, right, attendance for those. We can, I can do those mainly. So if we have SAS, we can modify that for you. Okay, so let's see, let's take attendance here. If you see it here. We're gonna create a new session. And so yeah, if you need some accommodation, obviously with SAS, you need to reach out to me so we can have something, a plan that is set for you, right? If you think the time that is being offered, or there's some noise or disruption in the class, then we can find somewhere else for you to take an exam. Okay, I'll see you all next week.